Sober on Purpose is the podcast that takes you beyond clean to fulfilling your dreams. Other programs get you sober. We ask what's next. Come thrive with us.
All right. Hey, Jerry.
Hey, Tanya.
So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. That's kind of a normal childhood, people would think, right?
So my first question, Mike, is why are you out to destroy my life?
I get that question a lot, by the way. The ticket to the game is 100% sugar abstinence. You make the decisions after that. The humans, or at least the people that eat processed food or manufactured food like that, they've moved it to a place where it's artificially high. Our desire for sweet is artificially high. Like those crab apples aren't that sweet. Those blueberries, they're not that sweet,
So there's two things that I want to talk about. The emotional effects, we've seen it. We know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of we changed some friend groups when we stopped drinking, when we stopped doing all those things, because they were so pushy about it, right?
Sure.
And how do you show up? You talk a little bit about this in your book about coming out, explaining your new behaviors. I can't eat cake,
Yeah.
So do you want to do emotional
I
first
can eat cake.
Well, we can, but you can drink too, but we know what happens if that happens.
Is, can I stop again?
Yeah. Can we stop again? So talk to us about the emotional things that coming off sugar, what effects that will have.
Yeah. So this is what I think the crux of our work, and this is the big aha, if you will. And we've done like a perfect beginning of the arc of, people want to know about the food and what to eat and stuff. But at the end of the day, what begins to happen, and it happens in recovery of any kind, and the part that people have a hard time grasping is that sugar, flour, caffeine are powerful enough to do the same things that drugs and alcohol did. And as I said, if you talk to someone who's really got a solid food recovery and 100% abstinence, they went through this process, and this is what they talk about, which is the first 30 days or 60 days sometimes, depending on your habit, you're a mess. You're emotionally like weepy, and you're irritable, and you're angry, and you're nasty. You feel terrible. You're tired. You're lethargic. You're starving. It's just a whole set of stuff. But mostly what is happening is one major thing. You are beginning the process of having to reconfigure, like learning how to walk again.
Life on life's terms.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly right. It's life on life's terms. And people don't know this about sugar and flour. We know it in drugs and alcohol, but people don't know it. And that's why they turn back, because the common refrain to me is, Mike, I'm losing my mind, because they just feel so like. And what's happening is, people, old traumas are resurfacing. Things that they never dealt with are starting to think about. More importantly, they're starting to feel. They're starting to it's almost like a free-floating anxiety, a free-floating fear, worry, concern, whatever. And it's not attached to your life's okay today, right? And they're having to relearn their new processing problem. Like, say they had a problem with the boss or the wife or the kids or whatever. And they didn't want to really do the confrontation thing, or they didn't want to argue or whatever. Have the sugar, goes away for that night, still there in the morning. Have the sugar, goes away for that, never gets solved, right? You just kind of, I'll forget about it. He's been nice today, or the kids are okay today. The problem never gets solved. And so it's this emotional management system that literally was manipulated. Your mother did it to you, handed you a cookie when you were crying. She had other kids. She had a job. She had your father, and sent you to the TV. And we literally learned how not to cry, how to stop, block worry, fear, anxiety. And then we started self-medicating ourselves by whatever. When's the last time you saw a movie where the the woman broke up with her boyfriend and didn't have an ice cream party, it's like this is a cultural norm. That's why they call it comfort food. That's what it is. It's it helps blunt tough feelings, and we never get them done. And so when you quit and when you're off of it, you're like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? It's like, I can't handle this. And so we talk about the social part, which you talked about, which is, people think you're crazy because, you can give this to a 1-year-old with no legal, moral, or ethical worries, right? I mean, it's not like it's illegal or anything, but they're just not caught up with the science, nor have they spent a decade, listening to phone calls where, people are 100, 200 pounds overweight, losing limbs, going blind, and they still can't quit. And the reason they can't quit is because when they quit, muscling it, white knuckling it, they don't handle this part of it. They just think it's the food. If they stop the food, it'll change. That won't work unless they're aware of the second piece of the puzzle. So I know it sounds a little complex, but it's really not. It's really not.
Mike, are you still coaching around this, or do you have?
I work with really
resources?
high-level entrepreneurs, doctors, lawyers. Most of my folks are genuinely therapists and doctors who are like trying to help people during the day, and like the recovering people, they can't do it themselves. So I only have like 2 or 3 people left, and I only take on people who like beg me and pay me a ton of money because we're growing a platform. We have 2 meetings a day. We have 15,000 people in the forum. I mean, it's a full-time job.
Are there? Well, so we're gonna have listeners who are like, oh, that's me. Are there coaches out there for this specific issue?
I got 14 coaches that do work one-on-one with people.
Okay, so
I just don't do it anymore.
If they get in contact with your sugaraddiction.com website.
Yeah, they can just write me Mike at Sugar Addiction, or Michael at Sugar Addiction. Yeah.
Because what you've explained, at least in my mind, is not simple at all. That you are going to run back to that because that's what you understand as comfort. That's what you understand as friendship. That's what you understand as love. And that's what's, if you're fighting with your spouse and you put something in your mouth, then maybe the fighting stops, right?
Yeah, at least the feeling of it all stops for a minute, It's very limbic brain. It's very reptilian brain, It's very dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. You have to think of it this way when you're recovering. First, study fructose, but second, you have to think that when you're looking to ingest sugar, when the cravings happen, no matter how the cravings feel, which there's a whole constellation of that, is that you're looking for a dopamine hit or a serotonin hit or a GABA or oxytocin or adrenals or endorphins. All of these things are affected. And I think that again, another one of the cruel jokes is that it's so subtle as you become an adult. You're really just taking the edge off the withdrawals. You don't really get that buzz you see at a 5-year-old's birthday party when the ice cream comes out. You don't get that with you saw with your child at 2. You don't get that. You're just trying to come back to even, like most drugs after you've abused them. You're just trying to not feel terrible. And people don't put 2 and 2 together and understand that when they're off it for like about the 5th or 6th day, or sometimes earlier, they're in rough shape. They gotta do something, because either they gotta have some ice cream or they gotta like whatever, exercise.
Lots
or something.
of meditation, right?
Yeah.
Mike, recently I started weight training again, and I was reminded of if I can. I've just made this connection anecdotally. That through the times where I will get back into high intensity exercise, my cravings are virtually destroyed.
Cool.
Is there any logic behind that?
Oh, 100%. That's, like that is like, we call it the difference in what you're describing is called the difference between effort-based dopamine production and substance-based dopamine production. Like 30, millions of years of evolution has allowed us to find food and sex and procreate the species and give us rewards for dopamine, right? And exercise is our natural state. Like, but most people don't exercise anymore. And so they can sit on the couch and they can take advantage of a 10 million year old hack that the body has evolved to, so that they can get that dopamine hit and watch television, right? They don't have to get up and walk. They don't have to walk the dog. They don't have to go to yoga. They don't have to weight train. They can just eat and get that same beautiful chemical that our body produces via substances, right? And again, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but people need to understand that sugar and flour and caffeine, and especially the cocktail of the three, will allow the body to experience these dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. I mean, what are SSRIs, right? They're doctors' attempts to play with your serotonin so that you can dial in how you feel better. Meanwhile, you're eating sugar and depleting it. Like, in the world of dopamine, there's a thing called down regulation. You literally thin out your dopamine receptors. You have less of them, right? That's proven. Not so proven is how much they come back, but exercise makes them, gives you that hit of dopamine, that effort-based dopamine. So yeah, it's perfectly logical.
So effort-based dopamine hit versus substance-based dopamine hit. And you talk a lot at the end of the book of what to do. And one of the things I really liked was borrow from the beauty of the future to enroll yourself in the activities of today. Yeah. So you're actually talking to your future self going, we will get rebalanced.
Yes.
So talk to us about what you've got diets in your book. You've got, how to drop it down just a little bit. Talk to us about what you recommend to people. Do you recommend anybody does this on their own, or is this you really need a coach or you need a therapist?
You don't necessarily need a coach. A coach is helpful. I call them loving mirrors, like a sponsor in a program, right? So like, you have your answers. You guys are taking the courage to tell the world that you want some information about that. We know we have our answers. One of the most amazing phenomena that I've come to, just through pattern recognition, repetition, is people come to me with all of this insane amounts of knowledge, right? And they literally use that for a dopamine hit. You can Google information gathering and dopamine, okay? And we're only using dopamine because it's well known right now, but all the other brain chemicals too. And so you research the sugar and you research the diet and you research the weight loss and you get this dopamine hit. It's almost like you don't even need, it's like you're doubling up on your sugar, right? And you're eating sugar. So what we try and do is get them abstinent, and then we turn them on to more information like the summits and whatever that they can ever handle. And it becomes their hobby. But what you're describing is more commonly known as your why. You've got to know why you're doing this, okay? It could be your kids. It could be your parents died of Alzheimer's or diabetes or whatever. You don't want to go that route. It could be the weight. A lot of people start with the weight, but they usually transcend it. And that, when I say transcend, they are usually, when they truly get abstinent, they talk about their brain coming back online. They can process better. They can remember better. They can focus more. They sleep better. All of these brain, less anxiety, less worry. All these things change because it is a brain neurotoxin. It's a body neurotoxin too, but it's really truly, your brain actually shrinks. And so you've got to know why you're doing this. Because look, and I got to come up with a better thing, but I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is nasty at the beginning,
Yeah.
This is like, and you have to have, the answer to your question is, it's about a tribe you join. The AA thing is, we leave out the spirituality. We let people choose their own spirituality. Okay. We substituted the science. All right. But the best part of the 12-step stuff is the community. And this is proven by science. Even if you have heart disease or you're a cancer survivor, if you join a support group, you have double the potential of longer term living. And so it's joining another tribe that follows what we've been discussing for the past few minutes, and that's really where the magic is, whether it's Zoom meetings or Facebook groups or, whatever, anything that we're all moving in the same direction, trying to change this for themselves, or their family.
So if I was to fully embrace and become one of the sugar-free chosen people, am I still going to be able to hang out with Gentiles?
It's the same kind of secret society as drug recovery. It's like got the whole little wink, got the handshake, got the whole thing. You know what I mean? It's like you're like, but there is something literally deep in our core about that that tribe, that association, right? We're herd animals. We need to belong to that stuff. And what happens, I'm sure you may have explained it when you stop drinking and stuff, is that people don't want to, they don't want to go there, and they don't want to hang with you, and it's hard, especially with you can put the plug in the jug, man. You can stop and stay away from the bars and stop drinking, don't bring beer in the house or whatever, but food, that's another deal. People are going to bake stuff for you, they're going to have it, they're going to say, put the record book away, you lost 50 pounds. Wow. It's hard. It's
talks about you could become, you can't run away from it. You could be on the polar ice cap, and an Inuit would show up with a bottle of scotch.
Exactly.
So to be part of your tribe, sugaraddiction.com.
Yes.
Do a couple meetings a day. You've got coaches. You've got so there are people out there. You're not alone.
No, you're not.
People out there if you want to do this. And then your big production twice a year is the Quit Sugar Summit, which is happening September 26th. It's free, right?
It's free. Quit Sugar Summit, 7 days. If you're sciencey and you really want all the science, we got it all. Stanford, Harvard, we got them all. We got 2 Harvards this year. It's like we got like the best of people who have studied this a lot more than I have, and they can give you the true nuts and bolts. My angle, or if you will, is most of them, I'm bringing a lot of them over, some of the real famous ones too, that this is truly a substance use disorder. This is an addiction, period. And while it's not in the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, where you can, get insurance for it, it's truly is a substance use disorder. So yeah, the Quit Sugar Summit is quitsugarsummit.com. All you gotta do is leave your email. It's free, and you will enjoy it. A lot of our folks come because, like I said, with that information gathering thing, they're like getting a huge dopamine hit, watching all these people, like 6 or 7 a day for free. And then all of a sudden they decide that they're ready, so.
Well, as we close up, Mike, how about a case for optimism? We've talked a lot about what to expect.
Well, what I wanted to ask him was, you started out your story with how sugar was hitting you, how it hit your mom, all those types of things. So how has your life changed since you've been doing this? Because you are a case study.
And what kind of timeline can a person expect to see real change, noticeable change? And maybe, in the big book, it talks about how others will see it first.
Yes.
Right? Well, when could I expect to see some real, as you go into your story a little bit more and focus on a case for optimism and what somebody can expect to garner from this kind of lifestyle, what kind of timeline are they looking at to see real results?
It's a great question. It's a fair question. And, and I don't want to waffle on you, but it does vary from person to person. But I will tell you that I have never had anybody truly get 90 days of complete abstinence from all the things. I call it buying into Mikey's little fantasy. It's like, if you can get 90 days, no flour, no sugar, no caffeine, no nicotine, if you can do that too. But most people, they don't go back. Now, they may slip, or they may whatever, but they'll be back. You know what I mean? That's enough to see the future, to have a good glimpse of the future. You're going to have lost weight. Your skin's going to be better. You're going to be thinking more clearly. And I call it the ticket to the game. You've got to get the ticket. And the ticket to the game is, 60 to 90 days of 100% abstinent. And look, you can always go back to the 7-Eleven. You can just throw it away if you want, but try it. Just give it a try. And the stories that I have seen, I've had a whole bunch of type 2 diabetes remissions, rheumatoid arthritis remissions, lupus remissions, people that, their brain cleared up by their own guess. I've even had a couple pregnancies. I wasn't involved, but, like people tried IVF, whatever, in vitro,
IVF,
a decade, got off sugar 69 days, got pregnant because they weren't trying. They just, and I'm trying to get a guy who's a fertility specialist who's been doing this for a decade, same thing for years. He knows it. He knows it's true. And so, look, this was an evolutionary wrong turn, gang. It's not anyone's fault. It's not anyone, but like recovery from drugs and alcohol, once you understand that something is, you can't change, like you said, life on life's terms, you can't change it. You have to accept it as is. 50 years from now, they're going to say, they used to give sugar to kids. Did you know that? It's going to be it's going to be just like the Coca-Cola. They used to have cocaine in the Coca-Cola kind of thing, because look, when seatbelts came out, I can remember my father saying, well, what if I fall in the river or something? Like, fall in the river? Science said it, and cigarettes, doctors used to like be on TV and say, I'm, got their stethoscopes out and smoke. When science says it, it takes time to change. And I guarantee it, in our lifetime, well, maybe I'm not young enough, but you guys are young enough, you will see a sea change. And if that's not optimistic, but personally and individually, 90 days, give me 90 days and you can go back if you want, but give me 90 real days. And in those 90 days, you have to begin the process of working on your emotional thing. Because if you're white knuckling it, if you're like exercising every day, or you become a dry drunk, or you pick up gambling or running around or whatever, it's not going to help. You have to be in recovery. You know what I mean? 90 days of recovery, the physical alone will be enough for you to be able to see into the future.
So like any substance abuse disorder, you could just switch addictions.
Oh yeah. This is
oversimplified. I mean, this is the Atkins diet, right?
Well,
it's the Atkins diets without the understanding of the addiction piece of the puzzle. Diet wise, and this is what I struggle with people a lot. Like and that's why I had to do the challenge. It's a recorded 30 days, right? I couldn't do it anymore because everybody wants to know, what do I eat? Yes, it matters what you eat. You have to eat whole food, but you cannot underestimate you have to begin the process while you're withdrawing from and changing your diet. You have to begin the process of understanding the emotional movements.
What does everybody who tries the Atkins diet complain about, right? Is that it turns out carbohydrates are the glue that held society together, from everybody becoming a psychopath, right? But you've done a really good justice to talking about the emotional aspect consistently through it. Like, this is going to be a challenge. You need to be aware of that beforehand so that you can put the tools in place as you start.
Right.
And you can gain carbohydrates from vegetables. I mean, there's other places to get carbohydrates other than.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I'm on the verge of this. It's interesting that you're bringing this up because, guys like me, publishers want you to the second thing for you to do is to do a cookbook or a recipe book or whatever. And I have kept at bay naming a diet. I'm staying in my lane. No flour, no sugar, no caffeine. This is a substance use disorder. You get off that as long as you're eating whole food. But it's really come to my attention that my personal beliefs are closer to the Atkins diet than they are to the vegetarian diet. And I've been both over the years. Okay. I've been both.
One thing you haven't mentioned at all is potatoes.
Yeah, no, potatoes, you got to listen to Dr. Johnson's interview on the summit, because potatoes and rice and that kind of stuff literally creates fructose in the body. The body can create fructose, right? And potatoes, I wanted to ask him about the whole Irish thing and the potatoes and the potato famine and then the alcoholism and all that. We never got to it, but
well, they
anyway.
lost weight during the potato famine. I'm pretty sure.
Right. Right. So, I mean, the potato, like rice, grains, and potatoes, they can create, and this was new to me like 4 or 5 days ago. I just learned this, right? Never heard that statistic before, never heard that science before. So we always thought it was the glycemic, right? We thought it was like, and it will straight, like, because people always ask me, why do I got to quit flour? And why do I got to quit potatoes and stuff? Because the glycemic raises, then it's like you're drinking beer, you're looking for whiskey, right? And, it's like you're drinking whiskey, you're looking for cocaine. It's like you want your body's used to the next thing and you start the cravings. Now I know why, because you're creating some fructose, you got a little bit of it, and now you really want the high test ice cream or whatever. So there is a science loop to it, but it's not always, clear in your brain when you're trying to, resist it.
Wow. Tell us one more time about where we can find the summit.
Yeah.
And where we can find you.
Yeah.
And we will put all this in the show notes. And
okay.
Thank you so much. So give
sure.
us
QuitSugarSummit.com. Just leave your email and we will notify you of the schedule each day. It's free on the 26th of September. If you're listening to this 2002, but if you're listening to it another time,
2022.
2022.
Yeah, 2000, sorry. just leave your email and we have them twice a year. And sugaraddiction.com, the book that you talk about is downloadable for free there. So just grab it and you can read it online. If you want a paper copy, you can go to Amazon, but you don't need to pay for it. You got to pay for the paper copy, but you don't have to pay for the digital copy. And there's a little quiz there too if you want to take a sugar quiz on sugaraddiction.com. I always say if you made it to sugaraddiction.com, you probably don't need to take the quiz. So just get the book.
I love it. That's probably true.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, we really appreciate it. And,
always a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, this has been super eye-opening, and
I'm going to tell you something that is recently developed. The fastest growing group of people in our groups are people in recovery and coaches too for me. And I believe it's a long story, but the short version is I believe that people in recovery are the key to the obesity crisis and this crisis we're facing with sugar worldwide. Simply because I've worked with everyone, and when I work with recovering people, I don't have to explain the addiction piece. And some people won't accept it. Some people won't accept it when they're raging alcoholics. How are they going to accept it when they're, eating a legal substance that everybody else eats? You know what I mean? So keep up the good work. I really appreciate you doing this. And any other recovery podcasters, that want to have us on, we're happy to do. It's a long story about these small networks of recovering people getting the message out. It's really important to me. So thank you for having me.
Well, Mike, we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
You, beloved listener, are creative, resourceful, and whole. Do you want to add more purpose to your sober journey? Do you want to make room for the new and make your dreams a reality? Apply today for a dream session. Go to TanyaGioia.com. That's TanyaGioia.com and apply today. Let's get you dreaming about your new purpose.